So welcome everyone. We are going through the 7 points of mind training one by one, very luxuriously studying and examining them. And today we are getting to the 7th point, or the culmination, how to really bring all of this knowledge into fruition. So we'll start with our opening prayers that help us open our hearts and minds to these beautiful teachings. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. All sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness, may they have happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the most perfect and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. As earth and the other elements, together with space, eternally provide sustenance in many ways for the countless sentient beings, so may I become sustenance in every way for sentient beings to the limits of space until all have attained nirvana. As the Sugatas of old gave birth to the bodhicitta and progressively established themselves in the training of a bodhisattva, so I too, for the benefit of beings, shall give birth to that bodhicitta and progressively train myself in that discipline. At this moment, my life has become fruitful. I have realized my human life. Today I am born into the family of the Buddhas. Now I am a child of the Buddhas. From now on, I will forthrightly perform the actions befitting my family. I will act so as not to degrade the faultlessness and discipline of my family. Just as with a blind man finding a jewel in a heap of dust, thus somehow bodhicitta has been born in me. This is the supreme Amrita which destroys death, the inexhaustible treasure which removes the world's poverty. It is the supreme medicine which cures the world's sickness, the tree which provides rest for beings weary of wandering on the paths of existence. It is the universal bridge on which all travelers may pass over the lower realms, the rising moon of mind which dispels the torment of the kleshas. It is the great sun which puts an end to the obscurity of ignorance, the pure butter which comes of churning the milk of the holy Dharma. For travelers wandering the paths of existence, seeking happiness from objects of enjoyment, it is supreme bliss near at hand, the great feast which satisfies sentient beings. Today, witnessed by all the protectors, I have welcomed the sentient beings and Sugatas, Devas, and Asuras rejoice. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness which is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. So we are firmly in the final point, the 7th point of the 7 points of mind training. And I'm going to put today's slogans in the chat room. So this 7th point begins with, all activities should be done with one intention. And the second one is, correct all wrongs with one intention. So it boils all of this training that we've been studying, all of this learning to understand the view of where we're going, understand the commitments we need to make if we really want to open our hearts and minds in an awakeful way. And the guidelines, we went through all the just don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And now we're at, okay, we're really starting to see our minds. We're really starting to see our confusion. And so how do we propel ourselves forward? It's by returning to our intention. If we begin every activity, whether it's getting out of bed in the morning, eating, opening the door as we move out, starting the car, with that incredible intention of waking up into bodhicitta and responding fearlessly, open-heartedly, with a welcome receptivity and curiosity to every moment of life, whether it's introspection, seeing with curiosity all of our habitual patterns and the complexity that makes up our habitual pattern and the underlying fear in that habitual pattern of responding in ways that are limiting, or open-hearted fearlessly to every living being that we see, not only every living being, but phenomena, all of the earth, with that open-hearted, caring warmth, and wanting ourselves and all beings and all of phenomena to be free of confusion and free of suffering. So we're beginning this final section with, let's keep in mind the intention of using all of life, absolutely all of it, to wake up to what has been there all along, this extraordinary, beautiful heart-mind of wisdom and fearless compassion. And so there's a sense of, as we begin the journey, there's a sense of needing to look at what arises as our own fear and beings and phenomena. In the beginning, it's fairly separate. Then over time, we see our interconnectedness, and we see that interconnectedness through the introspective journey. We have been discussing so often, about ready to react in anger and seeing that the person in front of us is also afraid, is also limited by their unrestrained emotions, and that's causing them great suffering. So we see our interconnectedness through not just the humanness, through the mind's understanding that all living beings are experiencing fear, all living beings are experiencing aggression, and all living beings have that soft spot of compassion. So with that intention, the companion one, the next one is, okay, when we start to see that, we see more and more subtly. And as Brian was saying last week, you start seeing so subtly, how do you not freeze? It's by going back to that one intention. How do I use this moment to wake up? We see, that we're just filled with reactivity, that we have pots of fiery rage, that are triggered sometimes that we didn't even know their depth or that pain, that we've kept hidden from ourselves very successfully. So what do? We go back to that one intention. How do we use everything to wake up? And, in these moments, the intention gives us courage. How do we summon the courage to look? And it's that incredible intention that comes from seeing our own pain and seeing our potential to be free from pain, and touching base, first tentatively through meditation and then more and more, and relaxing into that spacious potential and seeing, if I have this potential, then so does all other living beings, because it's a capacity of awareness, a capacity of mind. And so it becomes something that's such a journey of curiosity when we can keep that intention in mind. So today I want to go back to our practice of Tonglen, because in many ways this whole training goes back to how to understand the practice of sending and taking, or Tonglen, and how to use it more and more skillfully to both keep the intention in mind, and in that pause moment return to the intention, and then over time to see how skillfully we can rest in that intention's reminder that we are none other than bodhicitta, and rest there for deeper, lengthier, more skillful periods of time. So I want to read a quote that I was reminded of from Hongzhi, the Chinese master who wrote and propagated a kind of meditation called silent illumination. And the book that has some of his quotes gathered is called The Empty Field. The empty field being that mind that is in the presence of interconnection and empty of then a separation. We all have the clear, wondrously bright field from the beginning, but many lifetimes of misunderstanding come only from distrust, hindrance, and screams of confusion that we create in a scenario of isolation. I'm gonna read that in because it's so gorgeous. Because here it is. Here we are. We have this clear, wondrously bright field from the beginning. Our intention is to be in that bright field, act from that bright field. Rest and relax, let go into that bright field. And what prevents us? Many lifetimes of misunderstanding that comes only from distrust, hindrance, and screams of confusion that we create in a scenario of isolation. So the isolation is the opposite of this presence of the wondrously bright field of bodhicitta that is our nature. So if we return to the traditional Tonglen practice, and I'm going to go over that, and think of that Tonglen practice as relating to that moment of pause when we can see our habitual patterns about to arise, our negativity, whether it's directed inwards or outwards, about to take over. And because of all of this training, we can say, oh, let's hold this for a minute, let's pause, let's return to our intention. That returning to the intention is remembering that our intention is to wake up into that field of bodhicitta, that kindness and compassion, that warm, welcoming, unconditional friendliness, and respond from there instead of responding from our habitual patterns. And so that pause, that returning to the intention, is connecting to bodhicitta. So that's the first step, connecting to the bodhicitta, using that pause to connect to the bodhicitta, using that immediate remembering of the intention to connect to bodhicitta. And then resting there, we say, okay, life is presenting itself in a way that previously sent me into screams of confusion and isolation. How do I respond in a way that connects me to the field of bodhicitta? And the recommendation is, okay, not conceptually. Let's take it in the tiniest way we can to settle back into the field. And so the traditional description is to breathe in something that's dense or something that's oily, and we could think of it as something that's odorous. So these days, there are so many different kinds of triggering experiences. So if I were to say smoky and you lived in Canada or California on the West Coast, that would be triggering of all the fires that are near your home. If I were to say, breathe in something that's dark, that might trigger all the associations with using dark as a designation of bad, leading into all the confusion of the origins of racism. So we want to find something that's not triggering. So we can calm that down by saying, okay, what is just uncomfortable for you to breathe in a little bit? Something dense. I was driving and there was this odor of a skunk the other day. So something that doesn't smell good. All the folks who are, have animals, you have the litter box or the dog poop that you have to gather. So breathing in some discomfort and really using that to see, okay, what does the moment of removing myself from that relaxed, open, curious, friendly mind feel like? Can I practice breathing in something so I can see even more subtly a slight trigger of discomfort pulling me out of the unconditional loving kindness, the unconditional warmth and curiosity? So first we're resting in that warmth of curiosity, and then we're trying to find, in the most subtle way we can, what pulls me out? What is the mind-body feeling of discomfort that has me rush into distraction over and over again, whatever that distraction might be? So let's take these first stages and work with them this morning. The other stages follow naturally, but let's just see if today we can take the first two stages. So really taking in our intention, may I and all beings be free from suffering. May we all wake up into unconditional friendliness to all of life. Can I trust that in my heart-mind, that has always been my nature, can I relax into that? And as we know from meditation, part of that is letting go of conceptuality that gives rise to the distrust and misunderstanding. So can we deeply relax our minds in a way that we are warm and friendly in the spaciousness of our minds? Let's sit with that. So now play with this a little bit. I could say rest in that bright, empty field of unconditional love and friendship and warmth, and notice the moment of discomfort that is distraction. Just notice going back and forth the movement of your mind away. And if that's hard to see, and it may be very difficult to see the moment of distraction, breathe in a density and watch discomfort arise, or breathe in a skunk odor and watch discomfort arise. Or if you're like if your kitchen trash has just gotten ripe, that smell, and watch discomfort arise. Play with that relaxed moment and then your mind moving away, and the discomfort of that distraction versus the relaxed openness, to the degree that you're able to touch base with that. So all along, these slogans have been guiding us through introspection into action. So we could say in today's slogans, may I rest in a bodhicitta state of mind, and as I respond to life, may I learn how to use each moment to come back to resting in that state and bring all sentient beings with me. So the slogans for today reflect both the aspirational intention and the action intention. So I'd like to move into discussion now, but I want to invite you, before we do, to just write down 2 adjectives of what it felt like in the resting in bodhicitta, and 2 adjectives about what was the experience of moving away from that or experiencing the discomfort that arises in the away state. Just 2 adjectives for each. So I'm going to invite you to share, if you wish, those adjectives or what your experience was in a small group first, so that everyone has a chance to express what they experienced. So for those folks who didn't join, really keep playing with this direct experiential touching base with when we can relax into our intention, knowing that that's actually our nature, and the difference that propels us into distraction as a body-mind experience. So for those who are joining from a distance, we'll close with a dedication. Bodhicitta, excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn may it arise, where it is born may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. So I'm going to stop the recording